Good morning. Welcome to Bible study. For the last several weeks in Bible study, we have been learning about the early church. And we've been spending time in different places in our church, thinking about things and learning things that our church does. But I'm not at the church today. I'm at my house. I'm sitting at my dining room table. And I'm here because of two reasons. One, to remember that the early church, the very beginning of the church, happened in people's homes, around people's tables. People gathered together and told stories of Jesus and things Jesus had done and taught. They shared God's love. And then that news spread and shared, and more people gathered. But the church began here in people's homes, not in a church building. But as it grew, one day it didn't fit in people's homes anymore. And so they needed to build buildings where people could go to church, to worship God, to share meals at table, to study the Bible, and to learn about Jesus. And so we have church buildings so we can have space to do those things. I'm also here at my home to remember that we have done church for the most part from our homes for the last 14 months. That has been a long time since we have been able to be together in our sanctuary, in our Bible study classes, with our friends. We are looking forward to very soon, this summer, being back together in our church building, worshiping together. But I want to remember and give thanks to God that we were still able to worship and study the Bible and be together on Zoom for Agape Kids, even from our homes. These have been sacred spaces. We have been together, and God has been with us here in each of these places. And so we celebrate and we give thanks for our homes, and we celebrate and give thanks for our church building. In today's Bible story, we're going to hear about some time that people spent in someone's home as a part of their church experience. But before we hear that story, let's remember what we've learned so far and all that leads up to it.
In the week leading up to Jesus' death and resurrection, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. He went to the temple. He had special meals with friends. Jesus was arrested, put on trial, and died on a cross. Joseph placed Jesus' body in a tomb. On the third day, Jesus rose from the dead. For 40 days after his resurrection, Jesus met with his disciples before returning to heaven. On the day of Pentecost, the followers of Jesus were filled with the Holy Spirit. Many people joined the church. They worshiped and shared life together. Philip was part of the first church. He helped an Ethiopian official understand the scriptures. The official was then baptized. Saul went to arrest followers of Jesus. Along the road, he was blinded. God sent Ananias to heal Saul's blindness. Saul was baptized and became a follower of Jesus. His name was changed to Paul. Peter taught Cornelius and his family about Jesus. They all were baptized and became followers of Jesus. Our story begins with Paul and Silas traveling to tell more people about Jesus. While Peter was baptizing the new believers from Cornelius's town, Paul and Silas were going from place to place telling people about Jesus. They set sail for a city named Philippi, and this is their story of what happened there. On the Sabbath day, we went outside the city gate. We walked down to the river. There we expected to find a place of prayer. We sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered together. One of the women listening was named Lydia, and her business was selling purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to accept Paul's message. She and her family were baptized. Then she invited us into her home. "Do you consider me a believer in the Lord?" she asked. "If you do, come and stay at my house." She succeeded in getting us to go home with her. Paul and Silas stayed in Macedonia for some time. Before leaving, they went back to Lydia's house and encouraged the believers who met there. And then they went on their way.
And now let's wonder about this story together. I wonder how Paul and Silas decided where they would travel. I wonder why the women had gathered at the river. I wonder how it felt for Paul and Silas to be invited into and to stay at Lydia's home. I wonder how Paul and Silas encouraged the followers of Jesus. A lot of Jesus's early followers, like Paul and Silas, traveled all around telling people about God. I wonder if you could go anywhere in the world to tell people about God, where you would choose to go and what you would tell them. Friends, thank you for coming to Bible study today. We only have one more week of these videos left, and then we'll begin regathering at the church and doing Bible study in our classes with our friends. We are sharing more information with your parents, but we hope that you will join us and you will be with us in person for Bible study and worship starting on June 6th. We will see you next week, and then we'll see you again in person on June 6th.